Ugh, no wanna do this anymore. Ugh, gonna do it for real this time.
Oh no! Ugh! Wait! There's so much to live for, Ugh!
Ugh can no longer scrounge for berries.
No, Ugh!
You're listening to America's most prehistoric podcast, The Pod People. I'm the woolly mammoth, Matisse Van Rossum.
I'm Ben Sheets, the prehistoric king of fire.
Hi, and I'm Cleveland Mosier, and tonight we're going to go back in time and uncover the mysteries there. We're going to be real history detectives, and that's why you can call me Cro-Magnon P.I.
Oh, God. That was so much worse. You were hyping that one up before the episode.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's fine.
A lot of preamble for a mediocre joke.
Call me Ugh Selick.
We just got home. We just got home from the movies. We just saw our second new film of 2024. We're here to talk about the brand new Out of Darkness, a film that we didn't predict because it kind of came up out of nowhere.
Out of the darkness.
Out of the darkness, if you will.
This
is the feature-length directorial debut of Adam Cumming?
Sure. Is he?
Andrew Cumming. Andrew is coming, not Adam.
Someone's coming. That's all that matters.
Someone's coming. This is a prehistoric Stone Age horror film.
More of this genre, please.
Yeah.
What a great idea.
Well, yeah, somebody, one of our kind Patreon subscribers shared this trailer a few weeks ago, and I was looking it up because it kind of came out of nowhere. I guess it's been sort of dancing around the festival circuit for like the last couple of years. I think it screened at a couple of festivals in like 2021 under a different title. I can't remember what that title was, and then I don't know why it got shelved until now. I don't know if there were maybe reshoots or just waiting for a more opportune time to release it, but it's out, it's here, and we saw it, and we're going to talk about it.
Well, it's kind of unique in that, like, there's not many caveman movies
No,
out there.
really, the last one that I can think of was, did y'all ever see that god-awful movie, 10,000 BC?
Oof. I sure did. I have no memory of it. I know I saw it, but I couldn't tell you.
I
anything
remember
about
it coming out.
I think it's a Roland Emmerich movie. I might be remembering that incorrectly,
that checks
but
out,
I did see that in the theaters, and it was pretty dog shit. But
I mean, I guess. Well, no. 65 doesn't really count.
No, it's not. That's like a sci-fi film. It's not even like...
Yeah, that's totally a sci-fi film.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy to me. You think, like, considering, like, the production value of it, that more people would try it. I mean, it's so easy. A caveman could do it.
Oh, my God.
Y'all ever see that caveman sitcom that they did?
No.
Didn't it get canceled after, like, 4 episodes or something like that?
Yeah.
He canceled almost immediately.
Yeah. It's a weird spectacle, though, because, like, it's one of the only TV shows where it's based on like advertising.
A commercial,
yeah.
Fucking Geico commercials. I have seen when I'm watching stuff on like Hulu and HBO that Geico has circled around to bringing the caveman back.
They kind of every few years they flip back.
Yeah,
to all their
it's
different mascots.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about Geico commercials.
Please, no.
Yeah. I'm very mixed on this movie. We just got out of it, and I have a lot of thoughts, and it's difficult, I think, for me to talk about it without sort of spoiling things. But I'm gonna do my best, because I really, really, really liked this movie for about 2/3 of it. We can talk about all that stuff first, but I do think that it's cool that a movie like this can get made because, like you said, you don't see many, like, caveman films, prehistoric films, especially in a genre like horror that have, such a high production value. They even created a entire fictional language for this film that all of the actors are speaking. It's not in English. And like, yeah, that stuff I think is really interesting and kind of surprising to see in like a modern film where, the tendency is to go like so commercial and marketable, and like this movie is not that really.
No, I mean it's there is no native language to view this. I mean, like literally everyone who's going to be watching it is going to be watching it with subtitles,
right?
Which I mean, obviously for like us isn't any kind of a deal breaker, but for for broad audiences, unfortunately.
It does make it much less marketable. It makes it a much more niche genre kind of thing.
I mean, this movie was never going to be marketed towards a wide audience.
True.
No.
It's obvious, like, they're trying to ape, like, a lot of the atmospheric cues of something like The Witch
Yes.
in the first half. And
I think they do it pretty well.
I will say, I probably like this movie the least out of the three of us. I was not a big fan. I found it kind of boring, especially in the first half. It picks up in the second act a little bit. However, like you said, the third act lost me again.
Yeah.
I will say, like, it felt a little pretentious because a lot of the movie is running around not doing anything, and the weight is put on like this artificial language, even though a lot of the characters aren't really likable.
I disagree with all of that. I loved the movie. I thought it was great front to back. I think we're going to have a little contention on this episode, and we can dig into all those details.
Sure.
But I found
Yeah.
the characters to be compelling. I found the atmosphere to be to put me on the edge of my seat from the beginning too, and I found the vibes to be impeccable.
Yeah.
I especially the score. I thought the sound design was amazing.
The score is great.
Like,
it's the
yeah,
best part of
Yeah,
the movie.
and from the beginning too, and I just love those like really vast shots of Scotland, as it's made very apparent. The film, I think it was one of the production companies was literally like Film Scotland,
Yeah.
or something.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, if you're gonna shoot your movie in a
I mean,
Paleolithic looking area,
Scotland is a great has great primordial landscapes.
Yeah.
I disagree about the pretension thing, and I'm with you, Cleve. Like I think the atmosphere is impeccable. I do think that none of the characters are particularly likable, but I do think that's by design. I think there's some complexity to them. And I don't think that the movie is trying to be carried on by its artificial language. It's just a very simple story. I think that there's a fair argument to be made that there's not a lot of like nuance or complexity, and especially by the end, there's not a lot of nuance. But I will say, like, yeah, I having just gotten back from seeing it, I'm feeling pretty sour on it just because how much I didn't like the third act. But like for the first, the movie's a tight 9. I think it's 87 minutes. It's, it's not long. And for like probably the first hour, I was like, this is like tailor-made my jam.
Same.
Like I was totally locked in. And I think that it does a lot of things very effectively until it all of a sudden doesn't. We'll get there.
Yeah, so it seems between all of us, we can all agree that the film has a very clear 3-act structure.
Yes.
So how about let's just go from Act 1 to the end. But also I think this is a great time to note too, it's been a little while since we've had an episode where I think we've cast a pretty broad spectrum of opinion on something. So I would say for anyone listening, I'd probably stop now, go watch it, get your own opinion.
See for yourself. Yeah, I think it probably will be the most rewarding experience.
I don't feel like
podcast.
this movie is one that can really be spoiled at the same time. If anything,
like
I think the thing to be spoiled probably will warn you about what you're getting into here.
No, I disagree. I think that a lot of the tension is held up on the mystery of what they're encountering, and Yeah, I think that would absolutely change the experience, for the good or for bad.
Every spoiling things is kind of subjective. Everybody has their own limit for what they consider a spoiler, what they do and don't want. So I mean, just
Sure.
as
It's kind of
as
arbitrary.
it's arbitrary as usual, as with every episode of the podcast. Like, we're going to be discussing the entire film in detail. So if you don't want it spoiled, stop now, go see it, draw your own opinions. Otherwise, here we go.
Yeah. But I would like to, from here, probably do it in like a linear fashion.
Yeah. No, I think
that's
that is a good way to do it, because I'm gonna start complaining really hard towards the end, and I would like to at least give everything up to that its flowers, because I do think it deserves it. So anyway, the film, very simple premise. It's set 45,000 years ago during the Stone Age. We're following a small group of nomads who have just sailed across the sea. Which sea? We don't know. Whatever. But they have come to a new land seeking a new home. We don't really know where they come from, or, what the backstory is. There's some reference to the elders and people going south. So this group kind of has the vibe of outcasts, sort of striking out to find their own little territory that they can carve out and make their own. It starts with them sitting around a fire at night, telling, stories, and they start by basically telling their own story of sailing away to the promised land. But when you get to the new land, it turns out it's not what everybody thought. It's barren, it's windswept, there's no food, and they're slowly starving to death. And that's where we start off. And as the film progresses, the party encounters something in the dark that begins to hunt them, and the movie then basically just becomes a sort of cat and mouse. Monster is chasing the people trying to not be killed by monster. The general outline, very simple.
Something that I liked about this film right from the bat is it reminded me of a documentary series that would show like cavemen, like around a campfire telling a story, but with like such a production.
Yeah,
with
much
such
higher production value. Yeah,
and as like a history nerd, like I adore that. Like it really kind of lit up all my synapses, and getting to hear their story was clever. I enjoyed that our exposition is given in the form of one of them telling like an ironic story to the kid. And two, I thought that scene just around the fire, the way that everyone chips into the story, allows us to get a strong sense of each of their personalities very quickly. It's the young boy, Heron, and he asks one of the strays to tell him a story. She doesn't really want to. She's not feeling it. We later learn why, which I like. And Heron's father, who immediately asserts himself as like the dominant one in the group.
He's the chief, basically.
Essentially, yeah. Like, like insists and like kind of forces her to tell a story, and she doesn't know how to. And then the old man comes in, and the elder comes in, and he tells it instead. And of course, he tells it ironically, and it's just their story,
right?
Just wonderful. I really like that. We also get the chief. I guess we'll just call him the chief. It's just the easiest, I think, shorthand. He has a cool name.
Adam. Yeah, Adam, basically, but with an E.
Yeah,
Adam. Yeah.
Adam and Aviv. But yeah, no. Adam.
Well, yeah, his wife, the who's pregnant, is Ave. A-V-E. Yeah,
so
a little on.
Yeah,
I didn't even catch it until now. But Adam is like very like protective of his wife, and we can see that he sort of made this other stray his second-hand guy. But you get a sense that like he was probably kicked out of the tribe too because of how.
No, the younger guy is
is.
the younger guy is his brother. Is his younger
right?
brother?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's only one stray.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that's the girl.
Right.
Yeah, the youngest girl. Yeah, so you've got Adem, who's the chieftain, the leader. The other woman, Ave, who's pregnant with his daughter, his son Heron, and then Ger is his younger brother, and Odal is the old man, something like that, and then you've got Bea, who is like a young teenage girl, who they call her the Stray. She's sort of like glommed on to their group, and she's the only one in the tribe, so to speak, who doesn't have like a defined function, something that all the characters come back to regularly. You know, they've all got their own personalities. They're all bickering. Adam is very domineering, kind of cruel, headstrong, but, you know, is also bearing the weight of like these people's well-being and trying to find them food and shelter, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I like that necessary dynamic where they very much need him for protection. He's big and strong and powerful, but also it's regrettable. Like he treats, you know, everyone around him, you know, terribly. Yeah, and it put me at unease quite quickly.
Sure.
He reminded me of the sort of emergent villain character from Cube, actually.
The cop character?
Cop. Yeah, like,
a little bit.
You see what I mean? Like, it's that, like, character who starts out, like, well enough intentioned, but his toxic masculinity kind of puts everyone else on edge. I'm sorry to use that kind of overbaked term, but it's true with him. Especially for a caveman, it's a very silly thing to say. But, and that was something I was a little bit worried about going into the rest of the film is, okay, we've got, like, our big toxic male trait, you know, guy, and then we have who is slowly entering the limelight. What was her name?
Bea.
I almost said Aloy.
Been playing too much Horizon.
Yeah, clearly. Whose character is also Stray, which is funny. But with Bea entering the limelight as like our kind of strong female protagonist, girls get it done character, and the film doesn't exactly go that way. And I'm really glad.
No.
There's a number of choices that they made that I like very much. In respect to that. But we'll get into that a little bit.
I think her character sort of, I mean, she really becomes the protagonist as the film goes on. And I think that her character has the most interesting development.
Very much so.
I think she's the only character who really does, quote unquote, develop.
Yes.
And I think...
Yes. I mean, she's the only real character with any dimensions.
I don't know about
she's the only one who has an arc, but I do think that at least with like Adem and the other characters, they have like, they're not, I won't say they're like fully fleshed out characters, but I don't think they're one dimensional.
I really
I think there's some
the brother. Like he's like his sort of unwillingness to assert himself. I found to be pretty compelling that like she has to kind of step in and rescue him from time to time and convince him to survive. I really like that.
All of the characters, you know, as part of their sort of tribal culture, you know, they all have their defined roles, what is expected of them, and Bea as the Stray does not, which makes the others see her as useless, but really it allows her to fill many roles. Yes. Ultimately, is like her development throughout the film is that she's the one who is able to adapt enough to survive because she's not set in a very rigid sort of like societal position. I also like the elder that constantly gives terrible advice. I think that's a great archetype. Also, he gives into superstition. Yeah, and he even describes himself as wisdom. I am wisdom.
But there are several times before that as well where like he's really just has the wrong ideas. He suggests that they stay where they are. He suggests later like that they're in a bad position, which I mean, yeah, okay, that's half right. Like for their safety, they need a spot where they can like see the enemy coming.
Yeah.
So like it's a bad call then as well. And so like he's just full of bad ideas, which again probably why he didn't go with the other elders. I like that that's implied.
Yeah. The other elders didn't really want him, so that's why he's had to go along with Adem and his group, because otherwise he would die on his own. Because he's old enough that he's not able to fend for himself. He has to be cared for by a tribe. So the first act, in terms of like what actually happens. It's pretty slow. There's not like a lot of action. They're just sort of moving farther inland, not able to find any food. It's cold, it's rainy, it's wet. They do stumble across the carcass of a mammoth.
I love the cinematography in that sequence too.
Yeah.
Like, when they're first looking down the ravine, you can't tell if like you almost can't tell how big it is. How deep that gorge is until they get down into it. It almost looks like a miniature. Like it's not, but it's just because Scotland's landscape is so like. It's so often like utilized as a reference in design that like it almost looks like an alien landscape on its own.
Yeah, well, I mean, so many fantasy and sci-fi movies and stuff have been shot in Scotland. I think pretty much all of Caladan in Dune is shot in Scotland.
Of course,
Yeah, it rivals like New Zealand.
Yeah.
For cinematic.
Yeah, different kind of landscape, but
and
it is.
I will say like Scotland does a lot of the heavy lifting here, and
the landscape. Yeah, it's really beautiful.
And credit to like the DP and like the
yeah,
camera
I think
it's incredible. I think like it takes them to capture the landscape like that with the people in it to make them feel like that small in such a vast area. It's great.
It's a very nice looking film, and there's a lot of attention to detail and like the costuming and stuff. They obviously put a lot of work into that kind of thing, and the movie mostly avoids my problems with a lot of modern fantasy / like old medieval or beyond period pieces where all the actors look like they know what an iPhone is. I think this movie largely avoids that.
Yeah, I will say like a lot of the male characters are pretty well shaven, which was kind of weird, and they have like well knit pants.
The pants are the big thing, yeah. The pants. Everybody's pants look like some high quality, but
which is
I love
it's all the more jarring because all the rest of the production design is really nice.
I love their big fur capes and shawls and stuff, and I love like the attention to detail with like the jewelry, like the bone carved jewelry. She's wearing a necklace that has like
of little babies.
Little carved babies, and you sort of get the implication later that each one of those like represents a baby that she has lost.
Yeah. I want to say too, like when it comes to like historical accuracy in films and stuff, that like that people like even like fucking cave dwelling people like did like utilize hygiene. Like it's not like Flintstones or like caveman commercials where like they're all just like covered in mud and grease all the time. Like with a knife you can shave, and like with any kind of like fine bone needle and thread, like you can thread pants that look like that. So to me, I don't think that's a gripe at all. Like I think that's fine.
The stitching is impeccably neat on their pants. I think it's a little too close than what you could do with I mean, it's a minor thing because again, I think the rest of the costume design is so good. There's just like a couple of shots where I'm like, man, those are some really nice looking pants.
I mean, I would wear them. Like they look dope. They certainly look cool.
But yeah, anyway, so they find the carcass of this mammoth, but it's been totally picked over. There's no meat left on it, and they're sort of like, okay, it fell into the ravine from the cliffs above, but like what drove it into the ravine? So that's the first sort of indication that there is something amiss.
Which is very true to nomadic cultures that would often drive because they didn't understand how to like set up a paddock or to like do herd farming, so they would just drive entire herds of animals off of cliffs.
I mean, it's also an easier way to kill a mammoth than trying to get up close on it with a spear.
Yeah, when it's one mammoth
stick.
For sure. When it's a herd of mammoths, you've just killed the food chain.
Yeah, they don't know about that.
Yeah, that's true. They
were just doing whatever.
They were just trying to live.
They're just doing whatever.
Living in the moment. Not a cell phone in sight.
Yeah, exactly. Not a cell phone in sight. And I believe that none of these characters have ever seen an iPhone either.
Yes.
So credit to them on that. But yeah, so on like the second or third night, something comes out of the darkness and takes the boy Heron, sort of kicking off the central conflict of the film. Something horrible comes out of the dark and grabs him and pulls him off, and Adem wants to run off after him, and they're like, no, you can't, there's no way you can track him in the dark, we have to wait until it's light.
Well, and before that too, before they snag him, our protagonist
Bea.
Yeah, Bea. I kept wanting to say Freya. Bea, like, she gets her period.
Yes.
We don't know for the first time or not.
It's implied
it
for the
implies,
first time. Yeah, because Ave tells her that like it's good now. Now you have a purpose. Yeah, now you have now you are of breeding age. Adem will want to keep you around so he can breed with you. Essentially,
joy.
Yeah.
And she uses moss for that, but she goes off just slightly away from the campfire to tend to herself, and we hear the creature.
Yeah,
and we get just a glimpse of something that begins a series of incredible shots, making you wonder what the fuck that thing is.
Yeah,
in the distance. This is where the boy is then taken. I love how they play up the creature. Right?
Yeah,
I think, I can see where you come from with that, but to me, it felt minimal to a fault. It felt like they were kind of skimping out on stuff they could show a lot of times in those. Like, they really kind of pare down what they show to the bare minimum.
I think that they get enough silhouettes of the creature where, like, and each time it looks just a little bit different. And so for me, it checked all the points off the list of a creature reveal where you get that 3 blind men and an elephant aspect, where you each time you wonder, like, what the fuck is it? There was a period of time where I thought it was like a spider or something. Like, I just couldn't tell. It really forced imagination. And it really made me think, like, what is coming out of the dark? What is that monster that's chasing them? And whenever I did get a glimpse, I thought it was something really wretched and horrifying, and I was pretty spooked.
The sound design and music does a lot of the heavy lifting for those. I feel like the creature itself in the shot didn't really do much for me, but the sound design and music, again, like,
the
really
sound design
elevated it.
Yeah, the sound design does a lot, and I think that's okay for, especially as early in the film as this comes. Like, I don't think you should see the creature yet.
Agreed.
Like, that reveal is supposed to happen later. Like, classic monster movie structure is like, you only get little bits and pieces, glimpses of it before the reveal at the end, and like, we're still in the first act.
Exactly.
Like, I won't disagree that there are problems, and I'm gonna
I
get
just
to
think
that.
they could have built the dread of it a little bit better. Like, the woolly mammoth thing is fine, but that's not enough for me. I think there's a turning point though for me, and that's when Adam tries to attack.
Yeah, that's the first kill
at
sequence.
this,
that's very early in the film.
Again, at this point, like, this is the first time the creature has shown up. Like, I don't think that they should show any more of it.
But that's like 35,
40
40 minutes into the movie.
No, it's maybe 30 minutes into the movie, maybe.
Yeah,
if that, because not long after that, then they get to the forest, which is where I think the second act kicks in, which is about 30 minutes, just over 30 minutes in.
And that's an important part, because, like, throughout the first act of the film, they're in the plains.
Yeah.
It's windswept, barren, dead. They have to get up to the mountain region to see if there's safety in the caves and the rest. So they can see the mountain in the distance. We don't know what's between it because there's a lot of hills and crags in Scotland. Mm-hmm. So they come up over a rise, and they see, oh, fuck, there is a huge forest between us and the mountain.
A deep, dark
forest. And I love that. I think that opening shot with the mountain again in the distance, they have their objective to get to, and between us and them is a creature in of itself.
Yeah.
The forest is given incredible personality in this movie, much like the forest in The Witch. We, like, it just from beat one, we're told, we're not going in there. Like, because when they first see it, like, they're still scouting out with the mammoth. They straight up say, like, we ain't going in there. We're going around.
Yeah, Gare tries to convince Adem to take them through it, but Adem is like, no, we don't. I'm not taking them into a forest. We're gonna go around. And Gare's like, we're gonna lose days on this. Is like, I don't care. We're not going through. But then after Heron is taken the next day, Adem is like ready to charge into the forest, and Gare is like, hey, well, hang on, wait a second, like, if we go into the forest, then we're in its territory. And then Adem is like, no, we're going in. It's like, so they've totally flip-flopped. Honestly, one of the biggest movies that this movie reminded me of, I know you haven't seen it, Cleve, but we did talk about it in the early days of the show. It reminded me a lot of The Ritual, in the sense that, like, first of all, the setting, but also, like, the party being forced through extenuating circumstances to go into the forest instead of around it because they don't have any other choice, and there's a monster in the forest that hunts them down.
Yeah, I've been meaning to read that one before I watch it. I still gotta get it.
I think the right way is the other way around, honestly. I would watch it first before you read the book.
Yeah, this movie, I can definitely see cues from The Ritual, especially how they shoot the forest.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if The Ritual was also shot in a similar forest in Scotland.
Yeah, you know, in terms of landscape and, like, environment, like, this movie kind of reminded me of The Other Lamb a little bit, because it's a lot of, like, bluish grays.
Oh, you mean Lamb? No, the other lamb.
Oh, I forgot about Other Lamb.
That cult movie? Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
No, I can see that a little bit.
Yeah,
similar,
it has a lot of, like,
States.
similar color palette and tone.
Yeah. Well, yeah, once they get into the forest, that's the definitive start of Act 2. And this is where the film really picks up in every regard, I think.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's the best part of it.
Hands down the best section of the film. I think this is where, like, the atmosphere really hits a peak. It gets really scary. It gets brutal. At this point in the movie, like, I was vibrating.
Torqued up.
I was, yeah.
Fucking same.
I was so happy with what I was watching by the time we got to here. Because, you know, they spend some time tramping around the forest, and just as it's starting to get dark, they stumble upon the creature's blood and bone pit.
Yeah, it's
because every good creature has a blood and bone pit.
Right out of The Descent.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Like that was what I think as like the carcass grounds. But
it's cool. There's like a big rock in the middle of it that almost has like an altar kind of vibe to it, which, I mean, I think works really nicely later when the elder and Ave try to sacrifice Bea to the creature. But yeah, it's just like this big rock, and just like surrounding it is like a bog of blood and bones and viscera, and you know, as soon as they find this, they start hearing the creature again. It's running around and shrieking, and they, you know, take off and start running back, but they reach a point where it's like about to be nightfall. So, like, as they're running, Adem's just like, start a fire. This part was one of my favorite sequences in the movie. Just like the tension of Bea there in the middle, like trying desperately to like start a fire as the others are like around her with their spears and stuff, as it's just like by the second getting darker and darker.
Deep in the heart of this evil forest.
In this dark forest with this shrieking monster running around, like very, very present and immediate danger. And then as the screen finally like fades fully to black and it holds for a few seconds, then we get that little spark as she's able to finally get the fire going. I thought that scene was fantastic. I really, really liked that.
Yeah, I love the use of tension in that scene. It's probably one of the most tense sequences of the film.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so effective.
I love too that she carries like that kit of like bark with shavings in it, so that
Yeah.
she can start a fire where she needs. I thought that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also just have like the logs with them that they carry across the plains, for when they.
Yeah, carrying their firewood with them so they can start a fire at a moment's notice without having to forage. Yeah.
I think that was cool.
Yeah, and I mean, then the tension just continues to escalate. Nobody gets taken. Adem just runs off into the forest, right?
Yeah, he hears the screams, and he doesn't he see?
Well, no, he catches it for a second. He's waiting because he's waiting at the edge of the dark, with his spear out, and he hucks his spear, and it sounds like he hits.
Oh,
something.
that's right. Yeah.
Cool. I've got a hit. I need to move in on this thing, which is that's good. That's good hunting. Like you push,
Right.
and so then he pursues into the dark to try and kill it, and he quickly realizes that he didn't hit it.
Yeah.
And
But now he's out. Now he's out there in
the
the dark by
isolated.
himself.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. I really like the pacing of that. And he gets out into the darkness, and then we cut back to the rest of the tribe together. And
Get a nice couple of minutes of him out there alone, like being stalked by the creature. And
again,
I
with
thought
those
that was
faint silhouettes, like just enough to be like, what the fuck is this monster? Every time I see it, it looks a little different.
Yeah, I love how the monster is shot in the sequence, because you get almost like a lot, like it's almost formless.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, like you see angles and like roundness and shapes.
Yeah,
and,
but
like,
you can never pick out like a true silhouette.
Yeah,
like
but
you
you
can't.
get texture.
You can't get a sense of it.
it looks moist almost at times, very like xenomorph-esque.
Yeah,
almost.
it feels wet.
And this is the moment where I leaned to both you guys and I said, wouldn't it be awesome if this was a stealth Predator film? And it was like they released it without saying it was a Predator movie?
Did y'all see they did announce a new Predator movie just today?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Another one directed by Dan Trachtenberg.
Yeah!
It's supposedly not a sequel to Prey, and it's set in the near future. But that's all
he
that
can
they
do whatever.
Yeah, let him cook.
after
Just
Prey.
earned it.
Yeah, after Prey, I'm
Yeah,
just
they can
happy
do
to have
whatever
Dan
the fuck they
Trachtenberg doing it again.
Yeah,
awesome.
again, like
Really respect for
Predator should be like him, the Predators hunting the greatest warriors of all different time periods.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. Still gotta get my feudal Japan Predator one of these days.
One of these days. God, yes, please. Yeah, so that's the moment where I was just like, oh, wouldn't it be great?
I mean, yeah, there's certainly plenty of Predator vibes here.
Oh, tons. And
yeah.
more on that in a second for sure. There's another sequence that's just right out of Predator. But,
Yeah.
Anyway, so tension. We cut back to the group, and we hear him call for his brother. And his brother is very torn on whether he should run into the darkness or not.
Well, yeah, we hear him screaming out
in
in the
agony,
dark.
yeah.
In agony.
clear
yeah.
pain.
And we've set up at this point that was it gay what's his name?
Gare.
There you go.
Gay.
My head's at.
Gayer.
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 But anyway, Gayer is by this point he's been set up to be tentative, not assertive like his brother. Clearly his brother has probably kept him in his place his whole life. And
Classic timid younger brother living in his,
shadow.
his older brother's shadow. Yeah.
And
sort of a reluctant spear carrier, like he's the only other one who carries a weapon because he's the only other like male of
Young
fighting
male.
age,
Yeah.
but he's not real. You don't get the impression that he's like really a warrior,
no, a few centuries later he would have been really into books and anime.
Yeah, there it is.
Gayer is definitely a weeb at heart.
There
I
you
think,
go. Yeah,
It-
a weeb's just 45,000 years too soon.
A weeb for cave drawings.
truly born in the wrong time.
Drawing,
Just big
just
titty.
in the
waifus
cave, just
in the-
drawing big titty waifus on the wall,
Yeah, his rock
and then
body
slapping
pillow.
slapping a big handprint on the titty.
Yeah, it's his fedora made of moss and fucking peat. Yeah, awesome, really.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Well, so
Gayer is, he's not sure. We're not sure if he's gonna go after his brother or not. And he does. He ends up running
Yeah,
off.
he runs out after his brother, and we're like, well, okay, he's dead too, right? But I love, this is another, I think, very effective tense moment, is like after he runs off and like we hear the screaming stop and there's just like there's a pause, and then we hear something kind of like heavy moving towards them, like something sort of being dragged. And it's like, oh, is the
What creature is this?
the creature is coming up upon them, and then it's Gare coming out of the darkness, dragging his brother over his shoulder with him. That's where that weight and that drag is coming
Breathing
from.
heavy.
Yeah, because then we see that Adem has he got fucked up.
Yeah.
He got fucked up.
Incredible makeup.
See, this was the turning point of the film for me, because until then, like, the creature was kind of vague. There was a dread to it, but like this kind of brings it all in.
A moment of impact.
Very.
Yeah.
I remember you were sitting next to me, and like as soon as it cut to him, and you see his fucked up jaw, you were just like, "Fuck yeah!" You audibly were just like, "Yeah."
Yeah, basically his lower jaw has been like torn in half.
Yeah, it looks so fucking
just like
good,
leaving his
dude.
throat like open. It's like, yeah,
Perfectly lit by the firelight too, like really wretched and terrifying.
Yeah.
and you can see the life still in his eyes.
Oh yeah, he's still alive.
He's quite conscious.
He's still alive. Yeah.
And in deep pain. But like because of just the way his throat has been damaged, he can't cry out, he can't say anything. You just see the fear and terror and torment in his eyes
and failure.
Yeah, and to me, like as a creature designer, as someone who does like concept art for monsters and stuff, like I find one of the most terrifying silhouettes you can do is like normal upper face, fucked up lower jaw.
Yeah,
I think that's
a classic.
Design wise, like it's all the necromorphs. It's all like so
Yeah.
many different creatures where like just like the top half. You get away with like the top half of a normal skull and then a fucked up thing.
The Reapers from Blade 2. The Reaper vampires.
Why not? Like, yeah, like there's all sorts of designs. You'll start seeing it if you look for it. But like, to me, it's one of my favorites. It's just like like normal top half, lower half, absolutely wrecked. Oh, you know what else? Funny enough, that I find to be pretty visceral is you're gonna laugh because it's funny, but the Britney Spears South Park episode where she fucks up her.
Where she blows off the top of her head, but she's still alive, and she's
her
talking.
jaw's all fucked up. It's pretty nasty.
Yeah.
And like that like kind of fucked me up when I watched when I first I think I watched that when it aired. But it's the same thing. It's always that design, man. So anywho, he's
and they're like, well, you got to do something. Like there's no saving. Like somebody do something. They're like, there's no saving him. Like he's not gonna survive. They're basically like, put him out of his misery. Fucking kill him. And Gare's like, no, I can't. I'm too much of a pussy baby. And they're just all like standing there like, what do we do for a moment? And then you just see like this sort of like coldness come over Bea.
Yeah, because he tried to rape her.
He tried to rape her earlier. Yeah, we didn't mention.
We glossed over that.
Yeah, we didn't mention.
Over the rape. Unfortunately, But yeah, anyway, it's when she goes out to like to check on herself much earlier before the boy is stolen.
It's the same scene when the boy is stolen. What interrupts him, what stops him from raping her, is the creature shrieks for the first time, and we hear it. But yeah, so like before she's trying to distance herself from the group too after this, and they're like, and Gare convinced her to like, come on, it's like you can't survive on your own, like we have to keep moving. And at this point she's like, okay, if you're not gonna do it, then I'm gonna do it.
You know what?
And
I will survive. Fuck you.
I love that whole sequence because since Adem is like the leader of the group, like having him like stripped away from the group so suddenly makes the whole tribe feel so powerless.
Yeah.
And that's why the sense of danger is so ever present after that.
Well, and they disintegrate almost immediately, right?
Yeah,
she kills him and then convinces that, because they still have not eaten in days, and it's like, and she says, well, we have food now, and nobody else is willing to do it, and so she goes and carves a big...
They joke about it at the very beginning of the movie, too.
Yeah.
They joke about cannibalism.
And so she goes and carves a big meaty chunk out of his leg and spit roasts it over the fire. And
They gotta eat.
because they gotta eat. And of course, Gare's the only one who doesn't. Yeah, it's his brother.
Yeah, of course. He's crying and he doesn't want to eat his brother.
And he doesn't want to eat his brother. Yeah,
doesn't want to go full Tenorman.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then they get through the night, and the next day comes, and then it's like they're like, okay, well, Gare, you have to leave us now because you're
typical weeaboo Gare. Like he won't have family dinner. He's too busy upstairs jerking off to cartoon women.
Yeah.
He just won't eat his brother. With the rest of the family.
He doesn't want to hold a spear. He just wants to hold his thing.
Also a spear.
But yeah, so they argue some in the morning, but it's like, well, Gare's the leader now by default because he's the only remaining male who's not old.
You gotta be it, bud.
Yeah, so it's like you gotta be it.
It's like real.
It's like, oh, all right. It's like, okay, so you gotta lead us out of here. So they spend the whole day like walking through the woods, and what happens? They went in a big old circle. Yep. They come right back on Adem's body again, like after a whole day of walking, and at that point it just like it completely disintegrates.
Yeah.
The old man starts getting very superstitious. He's like, this isn't an animal, this is a demon. We've trespassed. We have to offer it something.
Well, what I love about this part of the movie is like at this point, that's a valid theory. For both him and the audience. Like, we don't know what that creature is. We think, it could very well be a demon.
Yeah,
it does not seem to be a normal animal.
Into their mindset. They have made us really feel terrified and paranoid, just like these cavemen. And I love that. And, I wanted to know, because I mentioned I was going to come back to it earlier, so before we get too ahead of ourselves. I was a little concerned with the dynamic with Aiden and with Ayer. At the top of the film, like how they're going to play it out kind of stereotypically. And
those are just two random names that are not in this movie. Who are you talking about?
Sorry, Adam.
Okay.
Right, Adam?
Adam. And Bea?
There we go.
Okay.
Did I say Ayer?
Yeah, you said Aiden and Ayer. I don't know who that is.
Bea and Gayer and whatever.
Adem and Bea is who you're talking about. Okay.
Usual fare.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one of our wonderful fucking pod people tropes, me getting names entirely wrong. Right, so anywho.
We're not perfect, we're just men. We're just normal men.
We're just dudes.
we're just innocent men.
Innocent men. Anywho, let me start again from the top. Thank you for not letting
Fringus and Grink.
Fringus and Grunkle around here sprinkling the bink, and it's just something else. Anyway, no. I was a little worried with the archetypes they were setting up, that it was going to play out pretty standard survival horror. Mm-hmm. The characters get picked off one at a time, and our protagonist rises up, and it's just, Sigourney Weaver and Alien all over again, which is, again, I love Alien, but it's done.
I mean, many great film. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's
to a degree.
Sure. But anyway, I was concerned it was just going to kind of play out in the same way, and instead, no, like you said, he gets killed off pretty quickly, and the party just falls apart.
Yeah.
There's none of the old survival horror, jungle creature film archetype where they're still trying to make their way to their goal and they're getting picked off one at a time. That doesn't happen. This feels so much more realistic and immersive, and it really keeps you in there because it's all chaos.
Nobody steps in to fill the leadership role. It's like it just falls apart immediately because they then
it's so much more like to me terrifying.
Yeah, I think so. I like that too, because the old man immediately was just like, this is a demon, we gotta offer the demon something, we have to sacrifice somebody to the demon, and the stray is the logical one, right? That's where he's like, I'm wisdom, Ave is carrying life, and Gare is our spear holder, but what are you, stray? You're whatever we need you to... He says, you're whatever we need you to be, which is mirroring what Adem says when right before he tries to rape her, is like, you're whatever I need you to be. And so they try to take her to the gore pit and leave her there, but she wriggles away from them, and then the old man,
Hearing the creature coming
and desperate to offer it something, stabs Ave with a sharp stick or something.
From the pit. He grabs a...
Oh,
if I remember
yeah.
correctly, it's an antler.
And and stabs her, but as he's trying to get away, she like grabs him and he trips and falls over a rock and breaks his leg.
Stabs his leg
in half.
Awful. Looks
really
brutal.
bad. And so they're both left lying there wounded in the creature's in the creature's gore pit. And then comes a really interesting sequence that I thought was really like beautifully evocative visually, where the night comes and the aurora is above.
It's fucking stunning.
It's cool. This part reminded me quite a bit of the scene in the Earth, where he's he's running through the woods at night with all the lights strobing and flashing and stuff.
Also, to me the vision after he attends the giants in the Green Knight. He's visited by the fox. I loved it. It was surreal, ethereal.
It's cool. You like, you're still kind of, the movie's done a pretty good job of like putting you in these characters' perspective. So like the Aurora takes on like an extra kind of mystical quality, because it's like,
and it's a chance for them to get some dynamic color.
Exactly. Yeah.
100%.
Exactly.
And like, just incredible props to the movie, because the Aurora Borealis is something that's been so done in fantasy, adventure movies, and the rest, and to make us feel like we're seeing it for the first time along with these cavemen is a feat, and it's impressive.
Yeah.
And it truly does feel like a magical moment, and it does. It makes you feel like you're feeling, and a lot of that is sound design too. They use like some really cool synths.
The establishing shot of it, though, it kind of looked like the Mac.
It does look like the old like IMAX screensaver. Yeah, I agree with you a little bit.
They do something cool a little really, like, they drop the frame rate.
It's a little
it moves like really strangely, and
I like the strobing, the in and out of darkness as it gets brighter and then darker, and allows for some like those moments of blackness to sort of like naturally pace the structure of the shots. Yeah, it's like it's very surreal and beautiful and eerie, because we see the old man, he's lying there, and Ave has died at this point from her wound, but he sees her get pulled into the darkness. And Bea is off somewhere watching all of this as well. Really, really, very evocative. I like this part quite a bit.
And the following sequence: the morning comes, so with it, the mist and the fog and the forest, and that also looks incredible. Gotta say,
can't go wrong with the misty forest.
And at this point, Gare gets up, and he, because he bopped his head, and that's what stopped him from saving
Bea
Bayer
Aspirin.
Bayer, Gaia, whoever. Anyway, boy gets up, and he goes and he wanders towards the flesh pit area, and he gets pulled down by Bea. Mm-hmm. And in a shot that is right out of Predator, like. Because I love how it's shot, because we're on the opposite side. The camera's on the opposite side of like a set of like really nicely framed logs that are kind of hiding them from cover. And she grabs him and holds him by the mouth. And we think it's the creature grabbing him at first, much like in Predator. Yeah. And she holds, and they look out. It's just like the scene where they first see the invisible predator in the jungle, and I really like that. And they're just about 20 feet from the gore pit, and we hear the creature come, and we just can't see it in the mist.
Yeah.
And I thought I love the silhouette of it because it's got like some sort of strange large head. We get a shot a little bit earlier on too of it, like of that head like turning between the trees, and we get like a micro shot of it, and we're like, what is that? Like a face? Is that like a weird like horse skull? Like what are we fucking seeing here?
Yeah, you get these sort of like giant nostrils almost on it.
Yeah, you don't know if they're eye sockets or nostrils or a mouth. Like it, you just can't tell. It's
you just can't tell.
hole.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, this is about the last moment of joy I have in this film.
I'm sorry,
because the third act turn comes immediately after this, and poo-poos all over my whole parade.
Well, I'm just gonna sit back, and I'm gonna let you two vent for a little bit. You guys have your time, and then I'll come in at the end with my take. By all means.
Yeah, so I think we can actually pretty briefly and broadly describe the events of this last act of the movie, because much like the rest of the movie, plot-wise, it's relatively sparse, can be covered pretty quickly. So Bea sees the creature, she whistles to lure it over by where Gare is, and then like she runs around and ambushes it. She jumps on it, pulls off its head, revealing that it was just a mask. It's a person. It's another creature. It was another person.
And they would have gotten away with it if not for those meddling kids.
They did a ding dang Scooby Doo. They unmasked the person. So it's a Neanderthal woman. So our characters are Homo sapiens, but this is a Neanderthal. Then Gare's like, it's cool, even though it killed my brother and everything. It's over. It's just a person like us. And Bea's like, no, nothing's changed. It's still a monster. We still have to hunt it down. If it's hiding in the caves, we need to take its cave and make it our own.
Well, and the justification she has is kind of reasonable.
Very.
Like, they see in the fog the two bodies of the old man and Ava get pulled like they were nothing.
Yeah.
Like, it looks like a monster is grabbing them.
Well, yeah, I mean, everything up to this point, like, has led us to believe that this is a monster, and I just must say this was... I have especially more problems by the time we get to the end of the film, but even just this moment was a pretty big disappointment for me, just because it's like, it doesn't always have to be a story about how people are the real monsters all along.
See, even
it doesn't
at this
have
point,
to...
I wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt. I wanted to be like, oh, maybe this creature takes many forms. Maybe they are just going galaxy brain with it. But no, they are going with the simplest thing and the lamest thing, honestly.
I mean, the rest of the movie, literally, you said it as we were walking back to the car, is like, tribalism is bad. And in this case, it's literally tribalism with a capital T because of the Stone Age tribal setting. It literally just becomes about one group of people murdering another group of people because of perceived differences, despite the fact that we're not really so different. We're all really the same. Like, broad strokes, the rest of the movie, they chase the Neanderthal woman up into the mountains. They go into the caves. There's a Neanderthal man. They kill him. And then they find that Heron is actually alive. And that these people have been feeding him and taking care of him. And that they took him to save him from starvation or whatever. But at this point, Bea has gone full murder mode and is unable to see that these are people just like her until after she has finished murdering them. And man, I don't know. It's just like,
Incredibly on the nose.
it's so on the nose, and just like a rare instance where I'm like, why couldn't this just be a monster movie?
See, this is where I find it the most pretentious, right? Like, a monster movie would have been much better. They go with such a simple, on-the-nose premise here.
I never felt it was
that
pretentious until this point.
It becomes a message movie and becomes very almost condescending in a lot of ways.
It becomes a message movie at the very end. Yeah.
And it recontextualizes a lot of the rest of the movie. Like, what I was saying at the beginning about, like, the artificial language kind of being used as a mask to hide the pretension is, like, if this was all in English, like, how dumb a lot of the writing is would have been so much more evident. The fact that they have the artifice of the artificial language kind of masking some of that, even though you're reading subtitles, I get it. You're still getting that kind of distancing effect of it, where you give things more the benefit of the doubt. And the not great writing just becomes all the more apparent in the twist.
I think that's a little condescending, if I'm being real with you.
agree.
I think that's a little bit condescending, because, like, I agree that the movie really falls apart when it decides to become a message movie in the third act. I'm certainly not disagreeing with you there, but I do want to push back against the movie being badly written from the get-go. Like, I really do not feel a sense of pretension in the first two acts. I think it takes a bad turn that soured me very badly by the end. But I think saying that having it all done in a made-up language with subtitles instead of English hides that it was badly written from the beginning. I think that's condescending.
No, yeah, and I think it takes a great deal of work and effort to, like, one, craft the language, and two, to have the actors' performances, like, still, like, cross that barrier.
Because I think we've spent a good chunk of time on this episode talking about the character elements that work, about the narrative aspects that work.
The characters are flat archetypes, though. That's the thing. Outside of Bea, they're very one-dimensional.
But that's the point, right?
Exactly. That's not great writing, though.
No. I totally disagree. I don't think the characters are... First of all, I still don't think that they're entirely one-dimensional. I think that the characters have nuance, but they do fit archetypical roles. But that's because...
The archetypal roles are their character. That's basically all they are.
So that the protagonist of the film can act as a foil to that. That is the goal. They are set in their archetypical roles in order so Bea, as the outcast, as the stray, as they say multiple times, so you can be whatever I need you to be, so she can have the arc that allows her to survive to the end of the film, where the rigidity of the social roles that the other characters play ultimately contribute to their downfall. I'm not saying that they're not archetypes, but I don't think that archetypical characters mean bad writing. No. Archetypes exist for a reason. Archetypes have a purpose, and badly written characters do tend to lean on archetype and nothing else. But I think in this case, there is justification for that. However, when it gets into the third act and it decides that it is too good to be just a monster movie, that it has to have a deeper message beyond that, that is where I do find it kind of hacky, where I do come around and agree with you and wonder how they dropped that ball so hard. Because I do think that up till that point, I don't think it's pretentious. I don't think it's badly written. I think that they try to turn the movie into something that it doesn't need to be in the third act, and it's fucking frustrating.
Yeah, but I mean, even so, like, I think, like, you can imagine a better version of this movie without the twist, right? Like,
yes,
if the characters were, you know, more developed and, like, you cared about them more, I think this movie...
No, I think the reason that Tease is bothered by the twist is because he was invested and he was compelled by the characters.
Yeah, my problem with the twist is not anything to do with the characters. It's that they are taking away the simple, clean premise of a monster movie and turning it into, oh, well, actually, just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it's a monster, and it actually might be more like you than you think. I think that's condescending and annoying.
Yeah, I would agree.
But the way that the characters are written prior to this point, like, I don't have any problem with that. I don't even have any problem with Bea becoming a monstrous character. I don't think that
I
is.
love that personally,
In fact, I'm generally a fan of that in these types of movies where the protagonist has to become a monster to defeat the monster.
Yeah.
The fact that they
Like, her whole pro-cannibalism arc is, like, what really, to me, made her compelling.
Yeah, all of that shit is fine. My problem lies solely in the fact that the movie, really by the end, it feels like it thinks it's above a monster movie. That it feels like if it was just a monster movie, it would be too lowbrow, and we have to do something. We have to do something to elevate it, to give it a message, to give it a hacky meaning, you know, that will leave you sitting there while the credits roll, nodding and like, yeah, people really are the monsters, aren't they? It's
I would totally agree. I think it's not confident enough to kind of risk seeming unserious.
Yes.
Which is, like, a huge problem.
Yes.
And I think that's part of the reason it apes, like, better art house horror movies in terms of style. I think it plays on those styles because it doesn't want to feel like it's unserious.
I mean, yeah, I think so, but I mean,
I think it's almost unfair to say apes. Do you mind if I think
yeah.
it's, and I'm not gonna, like, come in, like, full swoop and, like, kind of like, well, you're just gonna, I'm gonna break all your points down, like, because you're valid, whatever. But
you can have an opinion without telling me that I'm valid. I know that I'm valid. It's okay.
Hell yeah, speak your truth, King. But what I'll say is, I think saying it apes those other films is a little unfair, because for the same reason I mentioned a second ago, is like, I think, you know, like Tease in particular, like you felt disenfranchised by the twist because it had you, because I think it was, like, on a level of The Witch and, like, capturing that A24 vibes horror so well.
For me, it
like,
was
in the
up till that point. Yeah.
And I would fully agree. And I would also even
sort of
agree
felt
up
like,
until the second act. Like, I think that whole section of the film, I think that they do get it. I think that they fucking nail it. So my counterpoint isn't that the third half of the film is...
The third half?
Sorry, the fourth half, whatever. Yeah, so the third act of the film, thank you, is at that same level of tension building and quality and impact. I agree in terms of tension and general effect. It doesn't hit me as hard. However, I still walked away from this movie really loving it, because here's the thing. I think the thing that's a real bummer about this film is that they were doing such a good job with a monster movie that it kind of feels like coitus interruptus, right? Like,
it's deflating. For sure.
They moved the goalposts.
They were doing such a good job at a monster movie that it was a bummer for it to stop being a monster movie and to be anything else.
Yes.
I'm with that. I agree. I also think they did an amazing job of making us think that this enemy tribe was a monster.
Sure.
I think that's cool. I think that's neat. and that's why I still like the film. It's very simple. It really just boils down to
I think
it does such an amazing job of putting us in the mindset of these cavemen, of these nomads who are wandering out into the darkness. They don't know what's over the next hill. They don't know what's coming after them. These people did believe that the enemy, like that Neanderthals were demons. They would think that sort of thing. And we think that right along with them, the same way that we felt like that aurora like borealis was magic in the sky, right? That like, hey, maybe this movie made us think that maybe a sacrifice is necessary. That's impressive. Like, that's really cool. And for all of that to be then like stripped away, and for us to realize like, oh, it's a Neanderthal, I think it's cool. I think it's neat. I understand. Like, I totally understand, and I sympathize with the conceit that, oh, people are the monster is a frustration. I agree with that.
Tribalism bad.
Tribalism bad, but
literal tribes.
But again, with all of that else behind it, I'm willing to give it a bit of a pass.
You know, I will say, I do think you're on to something there. I'm glad that you bring that up, because I think you're absolutely right that it is a testament to how well the film puts you into the mindset of these characters in this time, in this location, that you see it so entirely from their perspective that, like, yeah, that we, just like they do, we really believe that it's like a monster, demon, whatever. And I think there's something to that, where I think the issue lies is that when the mask is removed, literally, that perspective, I'm gone from it. It's a violent disconnect. I'm no longer in the shoes of these characters. I'm no longer from their perspective. It's like I'm ripped out and put into a totally third person perspective, because immediately I know what they're doing. Immediately, and it's like
you see the strings.
It's deflating. Then you're immediately like, oh, it wasn't a monster, it was just another person, and that person looks a little bit different from them, so they still think it's a monster, but me, I intellectually, but then it's like, I know, it's like, and then, yeah, exactly, that's just the start of the third act, and then you've got the whole thing, and then at that point it's like, oh, we haven't found the kid's body. The kid is probably still alive. It probably turns out that these people who our protagonists think are monsters were actually good and were actually taking care of the kid. And it's just like, all of a sudden, the house of cards falls down completely. The immersion is broken, the trick is revealed, and all of it, like, from that moment, I saw to the end of the film.
Yeah.
It's just like, all of the mystery is gone. It's all stripped away from it. And I do think you're totally right about there being something to them, like, putting me so effectively in the character's shoes up until that point. But man, it's a rude awakening, and it's not a satisfying payoff. And I think that's why it left me feeling so sour.
I have thoughts on the payoff.
Sure.
Agreement, frankly.
Because when the kid is literally like,
why it's not satisfying, and it's kind of weird.
The kid is like literally pounding on Bea, being like, "You're a monster! You're a monster! You're a monster!" Meanwhile, the rest of the movie, they're like, "It's a monster! It's a monster!" It's like, "Ooh, she's the monster now."
Also,
whoa,
like,
never seen that before.
How long has the kid been with him? 42 hours.
Right, exactly.
Like, not enough time to like develop a familial bond.
They kidnapped. I mean,
they didn't even speak the same language.
It's like they gave him food, I guess, but they kidnapped him from his father.
Yeah.
And from his people.
Yeah. He's like what, 8, 10? You know, like,
yeah, he's like 10, probably.
You know, like, he's old. He's developed a very strong relationship with his family at this point. So it's really that's what I find to be odd. Right, is like, is the more like the micro elements here. Like the macro is fine, like, but those aspects I find to be weird, and also too, I really don't like that they set up the ending with Bea and Heron as like the progenitors of the new world, because he's like a boy. Like, he's like a child, and I don't know, that's kind of weird. Like,
I mean, she's like 2 or 3 years older than him. She just gets her first period in the beginning of the movie. Like,
yeah.
they are of a they
He's
are
by caveman logic.
yeah
whatever,
they are close to similar age. I don't think we need to age gap the teenage girl and the 10-year-old boy.
Well, I was uncomfortable.
Who become the new Adam and Eve at the end? Yeah, I don't know, man.
Adam,
Adam,
and Eva.
yeah, the new Adam and Eva at the end of this one, or Ave, or whatever.
So
Yeah.
there's that. I think the descent elements in the third act when they're in the cave and
That stuff is cool. I like the light. The cave is open at the top, so like we can see the light. Like it's kind of
they gotta ventilate it. They have their fire going.
it's kind of cliche where it's like the lightning flashes and ooh, you see something behind her, and then the lightning flashes again. And
But
ooh,
the
it's
lighting
gone.
is so good.
I know
it looks so nice.
It all looks
that
very
I'm
good.
willing to
It's
give
a
that
very
pass,
it's a
but I
very
agree.
nice, it's a very good looking film, like consistently throughout. Yeah, and
But it is, and I do agree. I think you end the second act with the reveal that the enemy is people, right? And they still try to play up the tension the same way as the second act. So the
Right.
third act is still, they're in the cave. What's in the cave? Well, we know what's in the cave.
we know it's just people.
Yeah, and so like this is where I do agree. It needed some work. And it's a bit, it's a little weird again, like how they play with time, because again the boy is like just super on board with them, and it doesn't make much sense. And two, like I don't understand her regret at the end either, because people or not, we saw what they did to Adam.
It's true.
We
yeah,
saw
it's true.
like they stole the child, and they fucked up like Aiden.
They
and they
pretty brutally
dragged off the rest. We saw their gore pit. Like, I'm sorry. Like
it's like okay, so they were kind and they fed
yes.
the boy, and they're just people. But it's like, oh, it's like it's like her revelation is supposed to be like, I'm no better than they are. They brutalized us. I brutalized them. Who is the monster? It is all of us. We are all the monster, but we are also just people. But it's just it doesn't feel.
They still came in the dark and
It
stole the
doesn't.
boy.
It doesn't. None of it feels earned.
Yeah.
None of it feels earned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Which is a shame, because our protagonist's arc is well earned. Her going from like
I
the
agree.
stray to the like again like this like really dark night of the soul, where she's the one who is pro cannibalism. And two, I really like that bit too, like where she's the one who's like, hey, we've got meat right here, let's eat. And we have that wonderful bit of tension with her and Gayer, where she's just fucking chowing down on Aiden.
Yeah.
She's like, this guy tried to rape me. I don't give a shit. I'm hungry. I'm gonna eat him. And she's chowing down, and Gayer's like really disturbed by that, because like we see her like licking the grease off her fingers and shit.
Yeah.
And like,
I mean, they haven't eaten in days.
yeah, and Gayer just has to like bury it, like right in front of him. He digs a little hole, he puts it in there, and he covers it. I love that too. Like he covers the shame, and he looks back over at her, and she's just like, I don't give a fuck. I'm trying to survive.
Yeah.
And then later in the film, when they're dealing with the Neanderthals, she has the energy to fight them, and he doesn't. Like, he barely gets by, but he gets his little kill in, like,
Yeah, I mean, after she's already mortally wounded him, he just stabs the guy with
and
the
I like
spear.
that. And that reinforces that, like, she has the energy to keep going and to do that, because she made that hard choice, and she's willing to. Even though like, the long-term effects of cannibalism are known, but
yeah, you do what you got to do to survive.
yeah, and that's all cool, at least. But no, I'm not going to defend like so much of the third act, because like I will agree that they really did it. Like they in the second act, I think we can all agree they nailed that. Like
Nailed it,
they fucking nailed it. And the only defense I'm going to make is just that I think we were let down because they did a good job.
For me,
For you,
absolutely,
at least.
absolutely.
Yeah, but like,
I mean, consistently on the podcast, that's always when I'm the most frustrated
yes.
with a film, is that when it really has me going and then lets me down, and this is absolutely one of those cases.
And so, just because of that, I feel also like I find it a little hard to critique the man is the monster, like, conceit of the film, when they had me thinking man is the monster. Like, that they did a good job with that. So, like, it's just kind of hard for me to wag my finger, like, that much at the ending. Like, my gripes are more just at, like, how the tension is lost. At that, like, the mechanics of the narrative.
The answer is to split the difference. Man is also the monster. This is fine.
Yes, no, well said. I
many stories do this.
Yeah.
Many stories do this. Man can also be the monster. Anyway, I think we should rate this. We're going pretty long.
This
Ben,
was a good discussion.
This was good. Ben, you start. We're gonna go from lowest to highest.
Okay.
I already know how this is gonna go.
I'm not going to mince words. This is this year's Gretel and Hansel or The Other Lamb. This is a pretentious movie. This is a shallow movie that tries very hard to be smart. And it is a bad message movie with nothing terribly insightful to say. I think characters are flat. It is very badly paced. The second act is great, as we've talked about. The rest of it, throw it in the trash. Not for me. I am gonna give it a 2 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm certainly not that harsh on this one. I think it's a film with a shallow message and a shallow ending that is too afraid to be a great monster movie. I think it's that is ultimately what it is that if it had just decided to not have a fucking hacky ass message in the third act, that it could have truly been a great gimmicky but great novel monster film. For the first hour of this movie, I was like at a hard 4.5 out of 5. But for how much I hated the third act, it's got to lose a full star. Still gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5. Because I think there's more good than bad in this movie, but man, the bad is bad. It's really disappointing. But bring us home, Cleve.
Right. So overall I really like this film. There have been times in the past where I've been very let down by a film where I saw the potential in, but I think this one is unique to me because I feel like my guess is when they set out to make this movie, their goal was to make the Neanderthals feel like a monster. And I think the true flaw of this film is that they did too good of a job. I think that they did such a good job of making the Neanderthals feel like an alien creature that they left us wanting an alien creature movie. Like that's my take.
Sure.
Is that that from the beginning, I think that they set out to do this thing, and it's why I don't have so much hate in my heart towards them trying to do that thing, because also I like the idea of a caveman film, pitting Homo sapiens against Neanderthals. I like that, and I love so much about the vibes of this film, and again, like even the characters and the sound design and the rest, and so much of it, and I love that second act so much, and even the artistry of the third act is still great to me. There's some incredible cinematography in those sequences. I think of the shot where she runs up over the hill and we see her in the distance and they kind of let her go because they plan on following her. Like that shot where she turns around, she still looks kind of like a creature. And it's really nice. The big mountain behind her, it looks great. I'm just going to give this movie a strong 4 for me. It's a really hefty strong 4. It's not a 4.5, but like I will give it that.
That will give Out of Darkness an average of 3.2 out of 5 and a pretty wide gamut of recommendations or not on that one. So make your own decisions. Whatever, I'm not your dad. Next week, it's come back around to my pick. I'm very excited about this week's pick. We're going to talk about a really hidden gem found footage horror movie that I discovered several months ago that has left a really strong impact on me that I think you guys are really going to like. We're going to be talking about Savage Land next week. If you haven't seen it, don't know nothing about it, I encourage you to stay that way. I think it will really reward a fresh watch. I'm very excited. It has after I saw it, it immediately shot very, like, way up high in, like, GOAT found footage horror movies for me. So I'm excited to rewatch it and talk about it next week. All right, if you like the show, be sure to rate and review the show wherever you're listening to it. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/podpeoplepod. We have just opened up early episode access to our $3 tier on Patreon. So if you subscribe at $3, you get episodes 2 days early. $5, you get that plus Discord access. $10, you get all of that, plus you get to recommend films for us for our Patreon pick episodes. So patreon.com/podpeoplepod. Also, letterbox.com/podpeoplepod, where you'll find a list of all the films we've talked about on the show with our average ratings and links to those reviews. For my recommendation this week, I'm actually going to recommend a movie that, Ben, you recommended to us recently. I watched Venom last night from 1981. Not the Spider-Man Venom.
Venom, gotta get him!
Nope, not that one. It's a movie about a kidnapping that goes wrong when a deadly black mamba escapes in the apartment.
Klaus Kinski's in it? Is that right?
Klaus Kinski and Oliver Reed are the kidnappers in this.
Room-filling personalities.
The movie, yeah,
for
wild.
space.
The movie, the story is
Play off each other. I gotta see
It's
that.
a mid-movie elevated by two incredible actors.
yeah, two insane powerhouse
each other
performance who
behind
hated
the
each other.
scenes.
The movie does not a great job of blending like the crime thriller with the creature feature kind of vibe. It's very all over the place. Apparently Toby Hooper was originally directing it, but then but he left from a nervous breakdown supposedly caused by Klaus Kinski bullying him off set. And they brought in
Such a Klaus Kinski thing to do.
and they brought in another director to take his place. And all I'll say off of that is Toby Hooper's a legend, one of the greatest horror directors of all time, but proven that he has a far weaker constitution than Werner Herzog, allowing himself to be bullied offset by Klaus Kinski.
I mean, no wonder. Yeah, like you're gonna bring a gun to the set.
It's not
Klaus Kinski.
a fantastic movie, but it's a very weird, interesting movie.
Yeah.
And the ending particularly
Oh my God.
had me fucking rolling.
It's incredible.
So it's on Tubi.
Yeah.
It's called Venom from 1981.
Gotta get him.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, what you got, Ben?
Well, for my recommendation this week, as of recording, Steam Next Fest is going on, so they're big showcase of tons of demos. I think there's like 1,000 plus. They do this twice a year in February and October, one of the two. But I've played like 30 demos since Monday. So I'm gonna rapid fire.
You wild dog.
I'm gonna rapid fire recommend 5 really good ones. Children of the Sun. It's kind of a Hitman style sniper puzzler, where you have one single shot, and every time you kill an enemy, you get to shoot from that enemy to the next one.
Big super hot.
So
vibes.
so you have to kind of strategically plan out a route throughout all the enemies, and some are undercover, some are moving. It's really cool.
The style
is awesome. Check it out. Balatro. It's like Slay the Spire, but with poker. Super fun. Echo Point Nova is this movement, momentum-based first-person shooter where you're going super fast. Everything is momentum-based. So you have like a skateboard, hoverboard that makes you go even faster and like swoop around corners and stuff.
I like the skateboard
You have
game.
double jumps. You have a grapple hook. You have a boost ability. Like, you are just constantly moving. And it does that so well. You're moving so fast. It's super fun. And the last one is Mullet Mad Jack. Mullet Mad Jack is a maximalist Twitch first-person shooter where you have 10 seconds to kill enemies, and each enemy gives you a couple more seconds. So you're running through
okay.
levels as fast as possible, trying to kill enemies to chain as you get to the end. Very inspired by like late 80s, early 90s anime. Yeah, so those are the 4 big ones I'll recommend this week.
Okay, I don't have 4 recommendations. I have one. Very simply, I saw Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind at the Carolina Theater here in Durham this last Wednesday, and my shout out is just going to be to local independent theaters. If you've got one near you, like, just go and support them however you can. Getting to see a classic film on the silver screen is a special thing, and it is as important as celebrating fine art or classical art or any other kind of the arts. In my opinion, it's incredibly important that we respect history and make these classic masterpieces available to be seen as they should be seen. Go watch an independent, like, fucking classic film.
Yeah, go support your local independent cinemas. They struggle. Trust me, they struggle. So go see movies if you can. All right. Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay in the firelight or whatever.